For many, the word prayer connotates a kind of asking, like a wish list, a genie in the lamp scenario, a to-do list, possible maybes for God, an almost one-way economy of lining up the next hope, dream, or fire for God to put out. Both images we are given of prayer today suggest something entirely different. In the first reading, we hear an almost comical bargain between Abraham and God. For Abraham, prayer is for the community's salvation of the just, achieving as its almost byproduct mercy for the sinner. This discussion with God is a two-way street, a sitting down of two rational minds. And of course, in our gospel, Jesus develops this perfectly. First of all, that word that is used for prayer, both for Jesus praying in this certain place and for the request to ask Jesus to teach them to pray. And the Greek word that's used is proseuchomai, the word that the church would give to the celebration of the Mass, euchomai, Eucharist. It's prayer, it's praise, it's worship, it's adoration, all drawn in to one. Almost, if we'll have it, teach us how to Eucharist, as John taught his disciples how to Eucharist. Now, we get this so-called Lord's Prayer from what Jesus is about to actually say to them. But there's something so much else. It's like Jesus' entire life is his Eucharist, his offering, his prayer, his adoration and praise to the Father. The actual words fundamental to expressing it are through the Eucharist offered to our prayer lives. That our prayer isn't just something that we do on a Sunday, or do when we are in need, or when we are happy, or when we're desperate, or when we are feeling pious and holy. But prayer life means exactly that. A recognition and fulfillment of the fact that our entire lives, modelled on Jesus's, are to be a continuing dialogue, a continuing life with the Father. That the Father's name is made holy, sanctified by our constant calling of God as Father. That God is relationship with us, not just some kind of a deity who gives us stuff and sorts out all our problems. That relationship is fundamental to Jesus, called beloved right from his baptismal moment in the Jordan. And it is fundamental for us. You are my beloved Son, my favour rests on you. The Father's name being holy is our full recognition of our own belovedness. The coming, or indeed as the Greek sometimes suggests, So coming and going of the kingdom or reign of God, power of God, is that what dominates us, preoccupies us? Is our relationship with God, our Father, first and foremost? Give us enough for the coming day, our subsistence. And that in itself is always more than enough, given that the Greek word can also mean not just a piece of bread, but indeed a loaf. And we get it. As always with Jesus, it's an over-the-top measure. More than enough. Just like the scraps that were collected at the end of the feeding of the 5,000, more than enough. That sending away of debts, of what is even rightfully owed us, is done knowing that we too need our own debts cancelled, forgiven, gone. And that this will truly be at the heart of our lives and how we live. Not just the relationship with God, but the relationships we have with one another. I love the final bit where we use the word temptation. Trial. There have been debates about this umpteen times over the centuries, over this word, over this entire phrase. And any Greek lexicon will also suggest the word trial, and some experiment is the word suggested. It's as if Jesus is saying, don't go experimenting with these basic fundamental Eucharist-centric embodiment of how we fully assimilate Jesus' life of prayer as our own. And then this short parable about going to a neighbour's door at night for bread, using exactly the same word he uses in the Lord's Prayer as though to emphasise it. And then the beautiful link to the first reading, persistence. Keep going to the point of even shamelessness, almost even impudence, that we should fundamentally keep going, keep up our Eucharist, our prayer life, our constant being with, loving and knowing God as Father who loves us with an eternal love, who will set out for us in the Eucharistic life always more than enough, and who implores us to always have forgiveness at the ready. To take from this passage that Jesus gives us a formula of words with which to say prayers for the rest of eternity is to miss the magnitude of what he is doing, and indeed what he is always doing, inviting us into a life of constant Eucharist, communion with him and with one another as the fullest sacrificium laudis, our sacrifice of praise, in the imitation of Christ, in every happiness and in every disappointment, as an eternal offering, which, as Paul put it so perfectly in today's letter to the Colossians, that we can do nothing other than to take it all and nail it where Jesus nailed it. Nail it to the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.